Well, very good morning, everyone. This is George Beyrouthi from FS Securities, a stockbroking firm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. Today I'll show you how investors and traders can make money on our stock market and also the global market, and as far as commodities, foreign exchange, and many more. I will show you what is hot and what is not, and what you should hold and what you should fold. So enjoy the presentation and give us some feedback if you wish. Well, let me go first of all with the overseas market. The market in America, the three benchmarks were actually in a narrow range and ended up slightly lower. In Europe, the Stoxx 50, which comprises most major European markets, was up 0.3%. In London, the FTSE 100 index was up 0.7%, and the DAX was up 0.3%. The Nikkei was down 0.4% in Japan, and in China the Shanghai was up 0.6%. On our market yesterday we were down 18 points or 0.3%, and the futures this morning showing that the market most likely will open 9 points higher at 0.2%. And gold was actually at 1,288, and silver was at $15.15 US per ounce. Remember, the gold price was actually above 1,320 a few days ago, and we told you to actually get out of gold. The Australian dollar, 70.8 US cents, 62.7 euros, that's euro cents, and 53.8 British pence, and 104 New Zealand. Yesterday our market volume, you can see it was slightly higher, but remember that was actually 33% of all the trades were actually declining and only 21%, and that is actually the lowest percentage advances over the last 7 days. So are we seeing the top of the market, and are we likely to see a decline? Well, a bit more in this presentation. Anyway, now as far as the American market, this is the weekly forecast. We ended up seeing that the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 on Saturday morning, when we did this particular forecast, looked positive. However, the VIX was still bearish. Gold was almost neutral. For the very aggressive trader were bearish, and for the investor, which is the long-term investor over several months, we still could be bullish. And remember that the indicators on the charts, for the monthly charts, take a long time for us to actually get some signals out of it. So that may change in the future as far as the investor is concerned. Crude oil, bullish for the aggressive trader and the very aggressive trader. We can see wheat is bearish, coffee is bearish. So you're paying too much for your coffee. You ask why when the price of coffee is down. And the Australian dollar is bearish on the weekly, and bullish the American market, the US dollar versus the Japan yen is very positive. Okay, now if you look at the daily chart and you get some signals out of it, you can see that the Dow Jones has turned from bullish to neutral. So I would say that we may be starting to see a decline in the American market and probably a small correction. This is the daily. Gold bearish for the short term. Crude oil bullish. Heating oil bullish. Wheat bearish. And coffee turned neutral on the daily. The Australian dollar is bearish and the American dollar bullish. Now if you look at the chart of the American market, you can see we've had a very big drop in December, and it recovered almost all of it, and now we've got a double top, and that confirms that we are likely to see a decline in the American market. So we're going to take a view that the American market is now bearish. So this is our prediction. Okay, on our sectors, on the weekly, we can see that the financial is bullish, the material is neutral. Materials consist of the BHP, Rio, Fortescue, and finance, of course, is all the banks are in there. We are bullish in there. And telecommunication is very bearish, turned from bullish to bearish on the weekly. Consumer staples, which includes Woolworths, Wesfarmers, turned from bullish to neutral to bearish. So we will actually go short on the Woolworths and also Wesfarmers. So that was the weekly. The daily, neutral for the consumer staples. Again, the financial is bullish, and the materials is somewhere between bearish and neutral and bullish, depends on your time frame. Now this is actually our daily chart. You can see again with our market, we had a major drop in December and we've recovered most of it. Now what I would like to highlight here, despite the American market, we predict that it's going to be bearish. We see that here, this is a 200-day moving average, and once it crossed above it, we've seen a climb all the way up to the top, to the upper band of the Bollinger Band. We may see a retraction back. However, as long as those candles remain above the 200-day moving average, we will continue to be positive in the short term as far as our market. And what encourages us as well, here we've got the 100-day moving average in purple, and the orange is the 50-day moving average. I look at those three moving averages, the 200-day, the black, the 100, the purple, and the 50, which is the 50. And depends if the lower, which is the 50, is above the 100, that is bullish. So we can see that there is a momentum in the market. It may change, of course, but at least for the next few weeks, we have a positive momentum. The dots, those red dots, happen to be the parabolic stop and reverse, and they happen to be under the candles, which is positive. They may turn around and turn it into negative today, because the market may actually go down today, although the futures are saying we are bullish with 9 points higher. Remember, the GDP data is coming out, and the RBA, the Reserve Bank of Australia chair, the governor, is going to speak. So there is also a very important message he's going to say. So we're going to keep an eye on what's happening in the market, but overall, in conclusion, the US market looks like bearish and may have some influence on our market, but our market over the short to long term, we might see a positive momentum as long as those candles remain above the 200-day moving average, and the orange, which is the 50-day moving average, is above the 100. So keep an eye on those charts. Now, as far as our stocks on the weekly, BHP turned bearish for the very aggressive. That's on Saturday morning. We did it on Saturday morning to reflect what happened last week. And in a minute, I'm going to show you the daily. The banks, CBA bullish, Macquarie Bank bullish, QBE bullish, and Westpac bullish as well. ANZ bullish, but the least bullish of the four banks. And I mentioned Woolworths bearish, and Wesfarmers somewhere between bearish and neutral. Newcrest Mines, the gold, we told you to take money out of the market, and you should have, and it's turned from bullish over 3-4 weeks to bearish to neutral. Now on the daily, this is the daily, we ask you to take money out of Newcrest Mines, and we were right from early in the week. And you can see here we've turned from bullish to bearish. And gold, Newcrest Mines dropped in price, and gold dropped from 13.20 down to 12.88 this morning. QBE is strong as well. So this is our recommendation for the short term, medium term, and the long term. I think, as I mentioned, there is, for the long term investor, there is momentum. You just have to be choosy what to trade. I would say of all the banks, you may want to look at where is Macquarie Bank? Macquarie Bank is bullish on the long term. ANZ is neutral, and NAB is neutral, and CBA is neutral, and Westpac is neutral for the long term. Okay, the market here, the XJO, which is ASX 200, continues to be quite bullish. Now, yesterday in our market, we've seen that CBA was steady at 74. BHP was down 0.89%, trading at $37.30. Newcrest Mines was down 6 cents, let's say, call that steady. Woolworths, even though we believe Woolworths is bearish for the short to long term, still went up by 1.6%. That's a daily movement. The oil is positive, up 0.3%. And Newcrest Mines, bearish as I mentioned, slightly bearish. Okay, now the most active trades we've got for Fortescue Metals yesterday was up by 1.7% and Woolworths 1.6%. A2 Milk, another 1.4%. It had a very beautiful run. And you got Ramsay Healthcare and Telstra nearly 1% higher. Newcrest Mines down slightly. I think the market yesterday was, even though it was down, still, reasonably happy with the performance. Okay, in terms of volume, we've seen Suncorp had extra volume, nearly twice the daily average volume. Usually it trades around the 3.7 million shares between hands. Yesterday we've seen 6.5. So Suncorp is one thing that we might want to have a look at. IAG also had a very high volume. You must ask why. The price went up, volume is up, that's positive. Bramble as well had a very good volume. So Suncorp, IAG, that's the Insurance Australia Group, and Bramble are three companies you may want to have a look at. And for the very aggressive, we've seen a company called Cardno. The volume was absolutely berserk. You want to have a look at that. It went quite a bit, nearly a very high volume. And you look at Ioneer, Flexi Group, WWP, Myers Holding had twice the volume as well. Who's buying Myers? So these are things that we provide you every day so you can actually have a good understanding of the market. Okay, in the top gainers, Spectrum went 100%, but we only focus on the company that above 10 cents. Security Matters, 60 cents, went up by 32%. Smiles, Inclusive, Contango, all these companies had good volume. Alright, finally our disclaimer. Everything I showed you here is for general advice only. We don't know your financial circumstances, so obviously we cannot give you any personal advice. So before you take any action, please consult with us or with your professional advisor. So finally, have a good trading day, and if you want to ask us any questions or come back to us, these are our details. You can write directly to me at george@fssecurities.com.au, and you can visit our website www.fssecurities.com. Have a good, happy trading and have a good day.